Well, hello and welcome to episode 126 of Drink the Movies. I'm Brian here, as always, with Michaela. And Michaela, the year was 1868, and a little novel came out by Louisa May Alcott called Little Women. Since then, there have been, I don't know, approximately 500 iterations of Little Women. But recent history is inclined to take the lead here. In 2019, we got a new version, Best Picture nominee, Little Women.
Little Women, indeed. And this Little Women was filled with very famous women. This cast for this 2019 film is amazing. You got Emma Watson, you've got Meryl Streep, you've got our favorite person in the world, Laura Dern. I mean, and the most amazing Florence Pugh. And that's just the beginning. There's like six other women. It's Saoirse Ronan, who is amazing in everything she touches, even though she still looks like she's 17. I absolutely love this cast, and so I have to tell you, I wanted to hate it because it is like number 37 of all the Little Women out there. But yeah, we're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about a wonderful cocktail that you helped find, did all the legwork finding and creating and putting together for us. I'm so excited about this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Little Women, like we said, there's been a lot of iterations, but we're talking the new one this week. But before we do, we're going to have to whip up a cocktail and a mocktail. It's going to require a special ingredient, so stick with us. So why don't we do this, Michaela? Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back to get this week's cocktail going for Little Women. We'll be right back.
So the line that I love about this, and I don't know, have you read the book? Because this is an adaptation of a novel, as you said, right? Did you ever read the book?
I did not read the book. I missed that in school. I know a lot of people will read that, in their school days and things like that. But I never read the book. But apparently, in doing some research, there's like a whole bunch of websites you can go and learn all about the book, all about the thousand of iterations of movies and TV movies and miniseries and all the things on there. But one of the most fun things that I found was there was this list that had all of the food and all of the drinks and everything that was consumed in the book and like the number of times they were consumed. And one of the big ones in the book are pickled limes.
Pickled limes. Now, so pickling is just a term for like vinegar and sugar that you put things in. So when people think of pickles, they think of pickled cucumbers, which is like conventionally now, that's what people think of. But they have pickled beets and pickled eggs and pickled okra and all sorts of pickled stuff. That all sounds disgusting and horrible to me. Limes, I don't know. That sounds almost just as bad. I've never even heard of pickle limes. I myself don't remember that from the book at all. But I believe you.
You were not paying attention then.
I apparently wasn't, because it's like on like every other page or something, right?
Apparently they're a big deal in the book, and it even gets hearkened to here in this version of Little Women. I'll wipe out your debt and give you 5 more limes besides. Girl tells Amy as she's drawing a picture of the teacher, I believe is who she's drawing that picture of. So what I was thinking of, what kind of cocktail are you going to do for Little Women, right? They didn't drink. They weren't drinkers of things, really. They'd have some tea and stuff like that, so we could have went that route. But I was like, I don't know, pickled lime seems to be pretty important to people that really love Little Women, the book, the movies, all the things. So I was like, well, maybe we'll make some pickled limes. That could be fun. So I looked up some recipes. You can find some recipes out there. I said, that seems like kind of a lot of work. And then I just end up with some pickled limes. I don't know if those are any good. Maybe they were good back, in Civil War times when people were buying them for like a penny or whatever. But I don't know about right now. But what I do know about, Michaela, are shrubs. And if you want to learn more about shrubs, go back and listen to our lobby bar episode because we talked all about them. But basically what a shrub is, it's basically like a liquid version of a pickle. It's some sugar and water, vinegar, and then kind of whatever fruit you want to use. And brief history here, that's basically how they used to preserve fruit, right? Going back and forth across the ocean, making sure your fruit didn't spoil. They would make this, and then you would drink it. You would kind of reconstitute it in some water or put it into a cocktail, something like that. And that is exactly what we're doing. So we mixed up a lime shrub, which is really simple to do, and then did that into a cocktail. Or you could use this lime shrub in a variety of mocktails or basically anything you want to do with it. But a liquid pickled lime here, Michaela, the lime shrub.
The lime shrub. Well, I'm really excited because you make this up and you can use shrubs uh for any a mocktail that we would like to make. And so we're going to be doing a lot more of that, I feel. I'm very excited. So yes, let's dive into the ingredients and how we made this. What do you want to run through the ingredients then?
Yeah.
List for making this lime shrub rum concoction.
Yeah, that's right. So you're going to need some lime shrub. Now you could substitute the lime shrub out for a bunch of them. There's some commercial ones you can get. You can make them. They're very simple to make. Like I said, go listen to our lobby bar episode where we talk, more about how they're made and what they are. But to make up the lime shrub, it's super simple. You basically make a simple syrup. So I did a cup of water, a cup of sugar, put in the zest and the juice from about 8 little small limes in there, and then 2 cups of vinegar. You bottle that, put it in your fridge. It's called the hot method to make a shrub. You do that. So to mix up this cocktail, all you're going to do is you're going to take 1 ounce of that and 2 ounces of rum, put those into a tall, like a Collins glass or a mug or whatever you want with lots of ice. Put that in there, and then you're going to top that with some ginger beer or ginger ale, and consume and enjoy. And it's I don't know, it's oddly delicious. When you think of like a vinegar drink, you think I don't know about that. But it's really good. I really liked this. It's very akin to like a kombucha, if you're familiar with those flavors. That's kind of vinegary. Same kind of thing here, but a really good way to, I don't know, introduce some different flavors into your cocktails,
Yeah.
I guess.
For sure. I gotta say, when I first looked at the recipe for a lime shrub, I just heard about this whole thing about I don't know, a week and a half ago. And when you, Brian, started looking at this and saying, "Hey, I think we're gonna be able to kind of create our own cocktail for Little Women using a lime shrub," I was like, "Okay, great." And then I looked it up and I was like, "Oh, okay, this sounds interesting." It's the vinegar scares me. The vinegar scares me because it's
Mm.
so, I don't even know what the word is. Tangy. It's just got that weird smell.
It's vinegary. It's
It's
right. It's the
yeah,
name.
it's
The name describes the thing, is what it
right.
is. Yeah,
And your
exactly. But
whole mouth kind of squirrels up. But I've got to say, this was really good. And I love that you likened it to kombucha because I couldn't figure out how else to describe this because it's kind of earthy, but not like dirt. It's kind of, yeah, it's got and it doesn't have a minerality to it, but I wanted to say it was kind of earthy because it feels um I don't know, like it's much more natural. It's not this crisp, clean, like when you think of a lime drink, you're thinking of like super like fresh and like, and it's not that. It's, I don't know. I really like that you likened it to kombucha because that it's even got the same kind of mouth feel where it
mhm.
almost the acidity kind of hits the top of your mouth in the same way.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that this one, because it's lime, you can do shrubs with basically any fruit. So they can be sweeter, or things. But I really kind of likened this drink almost to like a dark and stormy that has like this like sweet and sour kind of undercurrent to it. So kind of like that like sweet and sour like lime thing, just kind of running through it. And I really liked it. It was really kind of cooling and refreshing in a way. And shrubs are pretty good for you, medicinally speaking, because vinegar is like inflammation reducer. So they've been used, in the past as some sort of like medicine and stuff like that. And then once you have your shrub made, it basically keeps forever. Or like I said, you can buy a shrub. And then if you want to do a mocktail, just do it into some a little bit of that, like an ounce of the shrub with some club soda, with some ginger ale, ginger beer. You could probably put some into like your regular like soda or like a Sprite kind of thing. I don't know. Really, the world is your oyster. But I thought that this lime shrub was a good way to kind of pay homage to Little Women. Kind of this obscure reference to an ingredient that has long been forgotten. At least to us here in the United States. If you have pickled limes where you live, please let us know how delicious they are, because I would love to know for sure. But I don't know, Michaela. This was pretty fun. I feel like shrubs are going to be an integral part of my cocktail making. It seems like a really good way to use up, like if you have some limes, lemons, oranges, strawberries, whatever the case is, that are about to go bad. Turn them into a shrub, keep them around forever, and put them into a cocktail. There you go.
That
Easy
sounds like a
peasy.
great plan. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm really excited because this gives us a whole new area with which to kind of play around and experiment with the different flavors. And I can't believe I'd never heard of this before. I'm just very excited. So it's a great day here in the Drink the Movies studio.
It is a great day for Drink the Movies. It is a great day for the March Sisters. It is a great day for the Shrub. So go back and listen to our lobby bar this past week and get some more a little bit more of a deep dive on shrubs, what they are, where they came from, and stuff like that. But we have a lot to talk about today, Michaela. So why don't we do this? Let's mix up another one of these pickled lime shrub cocktails. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back to talk about the most recent Little Women. We'll be right back.
Spoiler warning for Little Women. All of them. If you've not yet seen any of the Little Women, well, we're only talking really about the 2019 version that was directed by Greta Gerwig and starring Saoirse Ronan, Emma Watson, Florence Pugh, and a bunch of other people. But we're going to talk about it. And there's a lot of things that happen. If you've read the book, then you're probably not going to be spoiled. But we feel the need to tell you this, even though there's 87 different versions of this. We're going to talk about it. So you've been warned.
Yeah. Absolutely. So this version might be a little different than some other versions, but the bulk of the story is still going to be the same. So yeah, spoiler warning for the movies that started in 1917, I think was the first one, and
Yep.
they've been going on strong ever since. So like you said, Michaela, released in 2019, directed by Greta Gerwig, and what a time to be talking about her. She's got that Barbie movie coming out soon, so we decided to go with the new one to pay some honor to her there. So it's got Saoirse Ronan, Emma Watson, Florence Pugh, and Eliza Scanlon are playing our March sisters. Laura Dern, Bob Odenkirk are Ma and Pa March. Meryl Streep as the wealthy Aunt March, and Timothy Chalamet as Laurie. So there you go, Michaela. Quite the star-studded cast there for this one. And this one, rightfully so, got nominated for a few Academy Awards, 6 in total. Best score for Alexandra Desplat, best screenplay for Greta Gerwig, best actress nominees here, supporting actress for Florence Pugh, and best leading actress for Saoirse Ronan. Best picture nominee there, but it only won one, Michaela, and that was for costume design. Jacqueline Duran wins her second Oscar. She's gotten 7 nominees. She's apparently very good at making costumes for films. She won for Anna Karenina. What do you think about the costumes in this, Michaela? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, the costumes are amazing. So I did a little bit of research on this because I was so entranced with let's just be honest, I'm a huge fan of Florence Pugh. I have a major crush on her. She is just the most exquisite thing I've ever seen. So her costumes, her dresses always looked so great. And I love the scene where she's painting and she's got this really special apron on, and the way that it sits on her, like on her hips and around her shoulders. And it's different than like a normal apron because of the big hoop skirt. Anyway, I did some research and apparently there's something like 79 individual costumes with all accoutrements were needed to be done to complete this Little Women film. And it's all amazing. I mean, the suiting on Laurie and Mr. Burke are just awesome. And the way in which as they move from place to place, so you have them in their house and you have them traveling and you have them in the city of New York, and then they're on the beach, and the way in which they show the scalability of the clothing of the time, I thought was really special. And not only the way in which they're drawn and appreciated from like a theatrical perspective, but the functionality that had to occur to make these costumes and to make them functional to do all the things that they did was amazing. So what were your thoughts?
Oh yeah, no, I just kind of echo that. I'd also kind of read, yeah, that there were, I don't know, in the 70s there different costumes that needed to be made, and I believe that Jacqueline Duran went on to say then that each of the dresses took roughly about 40 hours each to get put together, which is just an incredible undertaking for this thing. If you go back and look kind of at her line of work there, those Oscar nominations, they're all kind of these period piece kind of things. So this was definitely something that was in her wheelhouse. And obviously, the story was near and dear to Greta Gerwig, nominated here for Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Picture. Greta Gerwig has directed, she directed one thing as like a co-director, but then she basically did uh, she's done two films with the upcoming Barbie, nominated Best Picture on both of those. So she apparently has an eye for what she wants to do with this thing. And what this thing is a story about sisters, Michaela. So let's get into this story a little bit. We're not going to go beat for beat through this because there's a lot of jumping around, time jumping kind of things. But I really like the intro to this because you get started there. You've got Jo. She's sitting in like this newspaper office. I really like the gentleman who's kind of sitting across from her. He's pretty great and kind of not, uh, giving her the what for, and she's standing up to him, to her best as she's trying to sell some writing to this newspaper. But basically, she's trying to sell stories, trying to kind of pawn this off under a pen name kind of thing, submitting it anonymously, and he's giving her the bones of what it's going to take to be a writer, right? To keep this short, keep this sweet. If your story is about a woman, make sure that by the end she is married or she is dead.
Yeah, because that's all that matters. I love this version of Little Women because it, to me, is the most feminist version that I've seen. Like it, they all have streams of that for sure because of the story itself. But I really love Tracy Letts plays Mr. Dashwood, and he doesn't care about the integrity of the writing. He doesn't care that this is a love for her. Like, he owns a newspaper and they're in the business to make money, and nobody wants to read about a woman who doesn't get married. That's just not something that he thinks is going to sell. And so he's like, she's either needs to be dead or she needs to be married. It doesn't matter. Like, the only thing that matters for a woman is what transactional benefit she brings to her husband and to society. Like, that's it. And that is really something that's kind of hits home over and over again. I feel like they don't beat you over the head with it, but it's something that is very well done as a theme through this entire story. And I've seen a couple versions of this before, and I think this one handled that a lot better, because I think even in the older versions, they really kind of gloss over that because we're still in this time where women might need to get married or be dead because that's the only value they bring to Earth. So, yeah. So I really love that scene. Tracy Letts is great because he just, as he's reading like her stuff, he has no problem with like ripping a page in half and being like, nope, we don't need any of that. Just figure it out,
That's right.
Make
Yeah,
it short.
absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. So we've got Jo there. She's at this newspaper office in New York. We skip over. We see Amy, played by Florence Pugh. She's over in France. She has a little bit of a run-in with Laurie, but basically, kind of getting the story set up is the sisters are being called back to their home in Concord, Massachusetts, and then the timeline starts to kind of jump around, right, as we're going back in time to see the girls kind of growing up and having their their sisterly bonding moments and their sisterly being agitated with each other's moments here. But our sisters are led by the oldest sister, Meg March, played by Emma Watson, and she is kind of an aspiring actress of the group here. All of these sisters seem to have a particular skill, and hers is acting, but she's a little bit more of a realist because, like you said, Michaela, this story this version of the story does a really good job of, kind of illustrating, right? Like what the value of a woman could be. Could you be an actress? Is that valuable, or is it more valuable to get married and provide a life for yourself? And that is a big recurring theme in this, right? Even Aunt March goes on to say that marriage is very transactional. Women we can't make our own money, so you gotta marry into it, and that's about it. That's about it. And Meg realizes that is kind of the most realist, I think, of the group. And I don't want to say realist, to demean the hopes and dreams of the others, but for the time and place that this was, Meg picks up on that. She knows what she needs to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, Meg ends up marrying for love instead of money, right? She ends up marrying this neighbor's kind of tutor. And it's really tough because they think that maybe she'll be this shining light on this family. And it's interesting because they keep talking about being poor, and they're in this what they call genteel. So they have a nice house. The family owned property, but the father has lost all his money, and now he's off fighting for the North in the Civil War. And so they are kind of left to fend for themselves. And, it's really it was on Meg to go marry well. She did not marry well. And it ends up, I remember Aunt March telling Amy, she's like, you're just going to have to marry rich, right? Because everybody else is a failure. Like, this is it. Like, and so Amy, even though she's in Paris and she's with Aunt March and she's trying to hone her skills as an artist, she knows that she's going to have to marry very rich, and she gets made fun of a lot by their neighbor friend. His name is Laurie, and he happened to be in Paris at the same time. And I love the scene where she's painting and he comes to visit her in his studio, in her studio, and he asks her why she is interested in this guy Freddie, and she says, well, he's very nice to me and he's very, very rich. He's even richer than you, Laurie. And she says, look, everybody has had to make decisions and make sacrifices. I like to paint, but I'm not going to be like this famous painter. I'm going to have to marry well because it's a transaction. And it's like the third or fourth time we've heard that kind of rote from the older women in the family. And I love that scene.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it's definitely painting that picture. Besides the fact that Amy is literally painting pictures, but it's painting that picture, and it really, it kind of neat to see in this telling the way that the sisters are kind of processing, balancing their love of art. For Joe, it's her writing; for Amy, it's her painting; for Beth, it's playing music. And for Meg, it's acting, and balancing their love for that against kind of the societal expectations of the times and what you're able to do. And with that, you see kind of this pitting of these two sisters, kind of not necessarily against one another, although there's certainly part of that. But you have Joe, the aspiring writer, you have Amy, the aspiring artist, and Joe is really willing, I think, to sacrifice for her art, for her love of writing, and we see that, and we see her grappling with that. Amy is willing to take a chance and go out to pursue her art, but ultimately she's not willing to maybe invest her whole life into that. She's willing to give it a shot, see if it takes, and then move on. Whereas Joe's really kind of committed to the cause, so to speak. And that story and kind of those differing views on their personal desires really kind of comes to a head, and really creates some tension and some competitiveness within the family, and for the affections and I don't even know how to say it, of Aunt March, right? They're trying to be the be the heir apparent, I guess, to
That's
Aunt
right.
March. So
Yeah, Joe spends a lot of time going over to Aunt March and reading to her and making sure that she's comfortable. And so she's real mad when Aunt March doesn't pick Joe to go with her to Paris and picks Amy. She's like, why would she do that? And obviously, it's because Aunt March is like, you're not going to marry. You've told everybody that you have no interest in marriage. So you're kind of worthless to me. I mean, unfortunately, that's just the way that Aunt March thinks, right? And Joe is really special in that she has no interest in marriage. For this time, everybody around her is kind of looking, to either get married or marry well, or even in her very young sister Beth's kind of romantical sense of like finding a person. And Joe isn't interested in any of that. She kind of wears and we talk about the costuming. She finds these jackets that look incredibly like feminine, yet almost soldier-esque. She finds this beautiful green, like brocade old jacket, and it's torn, but it still looks amazing on her. And she's writing in it, and it's got soot on the bottom. But she doesn't even she doesn't give much thought to what she looks like. There's a scene where she ends up selling her hair in order to help pay a bill. And she doesn't seem to care until like the next day or 2 days later when she's like, oh, I really did like my long hair. None of the other sisters would have even thought about doing anything like that because they're expected to do so much more. Which is why it's so sad in a way, because their neighbor, Laurie. He is a grandson of Mr. Lawrence, who's incredibly wealthy, and he was orphaned, and he's played by the absolutely incredible Timothée Chalamet. He's like completely infatuated with Jo, and it's so obvious from the very first time they even meet at this party, where the girls are supposed to turn out and be, fit for society and dance, and he doesn't want to dance and she doesn't want to dance, so they dance with each other, and that Laurie is just completely smitten with Jo, but she does not feel that way. And you just want to shake her because he seems really nice. There's nothing wrong with him. Why doesn't she like him? But she's just cut from a very different cloth, that one.
Yeah, that's right. She's spurning, like you said, those societal expectations. She wants to go out and be her own person, even within the face of the advances of Laurie there. And you get a little bit of that kind of play back and forth, and by the end of the movie, even Jo is starting to have some second thoughts and whether she did that. But yeah, you get a really great kind of opening little. It's not really an interlude, but they're at this party and they go out, and him and Jo are dancing, and it's against this backdrop of these windows. They're looking inside of the party, which looks really great. One of the things that I do like about kind of this version of it is some of the versions of Little Women are very much like Laurie and Jo are in love. They love each other so much in love. They should just be together. Boom. Laurie's going to go off with Amy. This one, I think, does a really good job of kind of playing both of those love stories as very, very potential and promising. There's some very I think you were talking about it about the actual costume of Amy wearing kind of this smock thing while she's painting, and there's this very intimate scene where Laurie is basically undoing that smock from her before she goes off to meet that. So I mean, there's a lot of that kind of stuff too, where you could be like, well, really either of these options are pretty good for Laurie, I think. So it's really going to come down to the sisters here to see, what they're thinking about it. And then against that, like I said, you have this is all kind of bouncing back and forth between kind of this present timeline of the sisters returning to visit their sister Beth, who has fallen ill, against kind of the the timeline, about 7 years in the past, during the Civil War, and kind of dealing with their mother, played by Laura Dern, and their father being out the Civil War, being injured, and then returning back home. Father March, played by Bob Odenkirk.
Right. Yeah, I think it's such a neat way they put this film together too, because the book does not do this back and forth, right? It is told very sequentially. And so the only thing I would say, this did not get a nomination for best editing. And I agree with that, because there were times I was very confused with what part of the timeline we were in, right?
Yeah, I have that's my main criticism of it too. I'll go ahead and throw that out since you brought it up. It does get a little confusing when they're jumping back and forth. And really the only way to know what timeline they're in is whether Florence Pugh has bangs or not.
Right. Is that it? Okay. Because even with Jo, because Jo cuts her hair, right? And she does that when she's young. Her hair gets long again. And I'm like, I'm lost. I kind of don't get it. So that's the only piece that I would think from a critical standpoint I would have made a little bit clearer. And you don't even know how much time has passed. In reality, it's about 7 or 8 years from the very first the oldest scene to the newest scene, I guess, the way to think about that. But these sisters, I mean, the chemistry between all these actors is so nice, which I really wanted to talk a little bit about, because they really acted so much like sisters. They fight like sisters, and they don't get a choice as actors, right? What the script says or what the story is necessarily, but the way in which they apologize to each other, and the way in which they kind of lean on each other, and the way they fight when they're really angry with each other, and the decisions that they make as actors in those scenes to convey that is really special. I think it made me, as an only child, or pretty much only child, really wish that I had a lot of sisters around me, or because they're not lonely. They put together these amazing kind of plays and ideas, and of course Joe writes them, Meg acts them out. Florence helps with the costuming because she loves clothing. And then, of course, Beth is doing all the piano work and the music around it. They all kind of put things together, and the way that the chemistry of these actresses as they move forward and they grow up is really special. And I think that was one of the things that I thought was really outstanding in
Hmm.
this version versus other versions, because it just gave a completely different light to what it was like for these little women who were growing up together and trying to make things work. In a lot of the older ones, there was this angst, right, between Joe
Hmm.
and Amy, and you didn't really understand. And I remember being real mad when Laurie just decides to marry Amy. It didn't make any sense. This one really makes, like you said, it really stretches that out and really dives into all the reasons why, and you believe it, and then you're not as mad, you're not angry at all. You feel very much for Amy, who is terrified when she goes home and she's married poor Laurie, and they're standing there and she's in black because they're going back for to be there after Beth has died, and Joe is just you know relieved that her sister is still there, and they can still be together and be family. And
Hmm.
um
Yeah, it does an amazing job of kind of exploring that kind of competitive and fiery dislike that you can only have for someone that you really love, like your sister or a family member in that way. And it does an amazing job of exploring that, and certainly have kind of those scenes that you see within all of the iterations of Little Women, all the way back to the novel of Amy burning Joe's novel and stuff like that, and obviously the stuff with Lori there. But it does kind of come to a head, right? As Joe's kind of started to wrap her head around. I don't know if it's just she's coming back to her home to come back for Beth's uh, funeral, or after Beth has died, and she's starting to I don't know, maybe feel those feels for Lori. Maybe she feels like that was a missed opportunity, but you don't really know if it's because she's really feeling that way, or if it's just because she's dealing with getting some getting some not very constructive criticism from her teacher pal Friedrich, played by Lewis Garrel. But it turns out that maybe Lewis just isn't that good at providing constructive criticism. Maybe he needs a little bit of a defter hand. But I do really like kind of that scene where he's like, "Well, your writing's not that good." She's like, "What are you talking about? You're
my
a writer.
writing's amazing.
Get out of here." And I love how kind of headstrong she is. So you don't know if it's really stemming from that as much, or just that she really did have feelings for Lori, and she felt like that was a missed opportunity. And it's a little ambiguous, and I really kind of like that, because it's not as hammered over your head as some of the other tellings, particularly the older ones. These things have gotten a little bit more deft, over time, in the 500 iterations of this there have been. But I
Right.
really I really like the kind of the ambiguous nature of how each of these sisters were feeling about the decisions that they were making.
Yeah. Now, I definitely think this one paid a lot more just paid a lot more attention to the shades of gray, and the ambiguity of how that works. I love the scene where Joe is with her mom, and I think it's after Meg has passed, and she says, "I think if Lori comes back and he asks me, I'm going to say yes." And Laura Dern, once again, amazing, right? And she has this quiet, comforting way in which she is as a mom in this film, which I just love so much. And she asks, is it because you love him? And she says, well, I want to be loved. And she says, that's not the same as loving. Like, and then she's like, I don't know. I'm so lonely. Like, I'm just so lonely. And is this going to be my life? And it kind of reminds me of this other movie that we talked about, The Fablemans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where and we talk about true artists and what that looks like. Amy knew she was not going to be a famous artist. She knew that she was pretty good at painting, but she had no ideas that she was going to be this genius artisan in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
Joe is like, she couldn't not write. There's a period of time where she burns all her stuff and then she goes back and writes again that very night because she can't stop writing. She is a consummate artist in that sense. And is it just meant for these artists to be lonely? And is that part of the kind of the cross they must bear, because they never are quite happy? Is that just a thing that happens now? And it really, her kind of confession to her mom, where she was very confused herself about how she felt about Lori and how she felt about her sisters and why and coming back and being a member of the family in a different way than being in New York and teaching and publishing and all of that. I love that scene. It's one of my favorites there. Because I think that growing up as a woman, you definitely get confused about things as a person, and it just articulated it so well. And that had not been done before.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned kind of her rewriting that, and that's kind of one of the more like amazingly impactful things where she's rewriting this whole kind of novel and she's laying out all these pages on the floor. And that is a great opportunity, I think, for me to jump in and say that Greta Gerwig has this really interesting way that she directs things. You think of directors and you think of ones that just make things look like super cool, right? Like you think of like Baz Luhrmann doing stuff that he does, it just looks cool on screen. Or Quentin Tarantino, he just has this way of having the actors do stuff that just looks cool, right? And the way that
Mm-hmm.
they talk. The same thing could be said about Greta Gerwig. Lady Bird in this, and probably in Barbie coming up. There's just something about the way that she frames these shots and the actors and the way things look. This is like a period piece, right? From like Civil War times, but it just looks so cool, I think.
Mm-hmm.
All of the way that this stuff looks. So
Yeah, no, the way she's editing things on the floor and the lighting, I completely agree. And it's really neat because that area up in the attic where she's writing, Mary Louisa Alcott. Gosh, I was thinking Mary Louise Parker. That's not her name.
you
Louisa something Alcott. Oh my God.
wow.
Louisa May.
Louisa May Alcott. That's
So
right.
Louisa May Alcott actually lived in a house with an attic. And there's pictures of it. I think you can actually go visit if you're up in the Northeast. And it's like this tiny, it's 4 feet tall. And so they had to make it a little bit bigger because they needed people to be able to stand. But I really love the way in which that whole kind of rendering of the story of the Little Women that Joe ultimately writes and gets published. I love the way that they show that because it's by candlelight. You see all these candles everywhere, and they continuously go down. And she's not sleeping; she's like falling asleep as she's writing. And the way that the shot is set up, and you see the pillars of the house kind of encroaching on her space because she doesn't have a lot of space. Yeah. I mean, she's just amazing. The director really knew what they were doing. She was yeah.
That's right. Yeah, she knew what she was doing, and the sisters knew what they were doing too. They get back, kind of for the funeral there for Beth, who unfortunately passes away here in the story. But you have Joe, you have Meg, you have Amy there, and they're all kind of with their loves, right? Meg is with her husband, Amy is with Lori, and now there's a new gentleman turning up. As I mentioned, it's the other teacher that Joe was teaching with. Friedrich, who is there. I really love this scene because he kind of turns up, unannounced, and stays for dinner. And kind of this whole time, Lori is like, "Who is this guy? What is this guy doing?" Because I'm married to Amy, love Amy, but also still kind of Joe's okay too. Who is this guy? Is I'm feeling a little threatened right now. Timothy Chalamet is maybe by this Friedrich character, but so I
Yeah.
really like that. And then ultimately it kind of ends up with them all paired off. The sisters, encourage Joe to go after Friedrich, who has come and says, "Well, I guess I'm going to go out west, California. There's no reason for me to stay here, right?" Elbow, elbow into Joe, and she's not picking up what he's putting down. But luckily for her, I guess her sisters and mom are like, "What are you doing? Go catch that guy. Don't let him leave. He was just coming here because he wanted you to tell him how much that you loved him, and you do. So go get on with it." And then fast forward to that book publisher, newspaper guy. And she turns in, this rough draft for this book about Little Women, and he takes one look at it, not afraid to cross out pages and things like that. He gets to the end and he's like, "No, this no good. No good at all." But luckily, he's got a couple of daughters that might have been interested in the story. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how he totally thinks that this is just not very good. She sends him a note and she's like, "I've got this manuscript and it's probably awful." And he's like, "Yeah, it's not great. But keep sending me the stuff like that are 2 pages or less where someone gets married or dies. That'd be great." Right.
That's right. Yeah.
And then I love the scene where he's at home. I guess he has a home office. I guess you could work from home if you were a publisher. I don't know how that works, but his kids come in and they're like, "What's the rest of the story? What happens to the Little Women?" And then it happens. He realizes this is actually amazing because most women don't care if you get married or you die. I mean, they care, but they also want to know about what's going on other than that in a woman's life. Who knew? We have thoughts and feelings of our own. It's amazing. And so,
Well, yeah, I mean, he will get his head around that, maybe women want to read stories about women, but
yeah.
at the end of the day, if you're going to have a woman in your story, make sure she gets married. So Joe says, "All right." So then it goes back, and of course we see Joe then getting with Friedrich at the train station. She catches up with them, and they go. She ends up getting Aunt March's house, which is nice. She turns into a school, happy days, and happily ever after for Joe because she is a smart cookie, and she knows that there's going to be 400 different iterations of this story over the course of the next 200 years, and she wants those rights. "Give me that money," says Joe.
Yeah, that's right. Show me the money. I love that scene where they're bantering about a percentage, and he's like, "Oh, if you need money right now, I'll give you $500." Now, $500 in 1865 or 1868, that was probably like, I don't know,
Like
$40,000
$4 billion.
now. I mean, that's a lot of money. But she's like, "Nah, no, I'm gonna."
It's like, if you're going to make me get married in my story, then
That's right. That's right. She's like, "No, I'm gonna keep it. That's not gonna happen." So then she comes home to this school that was Aunt March's house. And I love how she plans this. Aunt March passes and she doesn't leave the house to Amy, even though Amy was the one who went to Paris. She left it to Joe. And Joe immediately walks in and is like, "What are we going to do with this house with the other sisters?" Right. And the Meg, the oldest, who was married to the tutor, was like, "Yeah, I'd love to live here, but I can't. I mean, there's a billion rooms. I can't keep up with this house." And they say, "Let's do something that would really turn Aunt March's grave, right? Just once, though. Not too crazy, just a little." And they make this school, which is awesome. And so the final scene, it's one of the most beautifully done scenes I've seen in a long time. You've got an amazing score kind of as the backdrop, but Joe comes home from getting her book and she walks in the door. You see all of these school like papers hanging and little crafts that are done in different areas and nooks and crannies of this huge, humongous house. They go out to the backyard. She meets a couple of people. They have a cake. Her sisters are there. You've got Amy, with easels and a bunch of students in the yard learning about painting. You've got Frederick, who's teaching music. You've got, Meg, who is helping people with costuming and doing plays in this backyard, this very expansive backyard. Marmee, Ma, and Pa are there. It's apparently it's Mom's birthday. They've got this beautiful like autumn orangey bright, like really burnt colored, roses on this cake that they're giving her with a couple of candles, and they're all there and they're all together. It's a really beautiful continuous scene from the beginning of the opening of the house all the way to the backyard where they're having this birthday party, and I just love
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, it is a really nice long shot there of that at the end, and then you also get the really great scene of Joe seeing her book being printed there for the very first time, which looks like quite the process. The books had to have been really expensive back then for sure, as they're gold leafing the Little Women on there. So I don't know. That's kind of the end of the movie. I know we bounced around kind of a lot there. There's a lot to take in with the story, but there's a bunch of versions of it. So you can fill in the blanks of what we missed, but I think that it was kind of just important to talk about kind of what we liked about this movie, because there is so much kind of going on between the four of these sisters. So I don't know, Michaela. I had not seen a version of Little Women for quite a while. I didn't see this one when it came out in 2019. I knew obviously that it was very critically acclaimed, and people liked it. I know a lot of people were kind of in your boat. Not that they were hoping that it failed, but everyone has kind of their own favorite version of Little Women, right? And every time a new one comes out, you're like, do we really need another version of Little Women? And then it comes out, and everyone's like, well, yeah, that was pretty good. Okay. And then that same thing kind of happened with this one, and then Greta Gerwig coming off of Lady Bird, Best Picture nominee there. What was she going to do with it? How was it going to change? Was it going to stay true? Was it going to be updated? All these things, and it was, and it wasn't, and it was really good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Actually, there's this whole thing, and you've touched upon this. There's this whole underworld of little womeners. I don't know what they're called, what they call themselves,
I think
but
just Little Women, maybe.
maybe, yeah, maybe that's it. But there's this whole article that I read about all the feature films, all the films that have made it to the theater. They weren't made for TV and they weren't miniseries, and how closely they were to the actual book. And so one of the things that I thought was really interesting was that the 2019 actually is on the top of being, for what they show, it's as close to the original text as any of the others, which I find interesting. But yeah, I really wanted to hate this. I will be very honest. I love Greta Gerwig and I absolutely love Lady Bird. We haven't covered it yet, but it's on our list and we're going to do it at some point. I knew I had to watch it because I watch all the Oscar nominated films, but I was dreading it because I've seen so many of these, and I knew that I was worried that I was going to be once again really angry at Laurie, and I was going to have to see that heartbreak again. And I was so surprised by how much I loved this version. This has become my favorite version, which is saying a lot because like we've said, there's 37 others out there that are also amazing in their own right. Right? I'm not calling on any of those, but this was such a beautiful mix of amazing acting, really, true to the intent writing, very inspired directing, as we've talked about with all the scenes. The costumes are amazing. I mean, it definitely deserved all of the nominations that it received.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. There's not a Academy Award for location scouting, but there should be, because all this stuff was filmed on location in Massachusetts, and all of it looks amazing. The house interior looks amazing that they were shooting in, and things like that. It's just a really, really great version of the story that is so important to, literal like generations of people now, of everyone can find something to take away from this story. And obviously it's important in the terms of sisterhood and things like that, for women that have sisters, and how that family relation works has been kind of this tentpole novel and story and characters for people to kind of rally behind and get a lot from. So it's always good to see a new iteration of things like that, that are so so thoughtfully done and so well done, and so critically praised there at the end of it. And that is the 2019 version of Little Women. We're gonna have to wait a couple months here for Greta to finish her Barbie film, so we can keep covering what she's doing. But what she did with this one was really great, Michaela. So, kind of any closing thoughts? Anything else that we missed? Like I said, I know we bounced around kind of a lot, but I think we checked in with some of the highlights for each of us here through the film. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think we've covered most everything that I wanted to talk about anyway. I mean, I think um yeah, I think so. I think the time period that this was in was really special. And I thought they did a really good job of portraying the time, but not making that the focal point. Another aspect of this that I really loved was the aspect of giving. Marmy, the mother, on Christmas morning, I guess the very first Christmas we all see them,
Hmm.
they learn of a family that is in like a one room shack that has like 5 kids, and they're all in one bed because it's real cold in New England and you can literally freeze to death. And the mom says, "Hey, I know it's Christmas morning and we keep talking about how we're real poor, but we've got a really nice house and we're all not starving. Can we give up our breakfast and bring it over to the family?" And they don't even really complain at all. They just say, "Okay, let's do it." And they pack up all their stuff and they take a trip over and they spend the morning with this family. And it ends up, that idea that there's something to give. I thought that was the only other thing that we hadn't really talked about that I thought was really special, because that intrinsic goodness that the father has, because even though he didn't necessarily have to, he went to war and he's staying to fight because it's something he believes in and he wants to do what's right. And the mom insisting that they give everything that everything that they have to spare to people who are less well off. And then that wearing off on the children, even little Beth, who ends up getting scarlet fever and dying because she goes and helps the family, that
Hmm.
same family. And I think that that's really special. It's very tragic, but it's also something that we can all learn from, because I definitely was, what's the word? When I saw all of the goodies that they had, I was really
Hmm.
sad. I was like, oh, they're going to give that away. And then it comes back tenfold to them. Right. But selfish. That's the word. I was selfish. But it definitely inspires greatness by watching this family kind of work through that as well. And I love that piece to it. It's a
Yeah.
recurring theme throughout the book. And I thought that was really important.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. So that is the 2019 version of Little Women. Let us know at home if you like this version of Little Women, or what your favorite version of it is, or if it's one of the miniseries. Let us know. We will be happy to check it out and report back with what we think about that. And let us know if you mix up one of these lime shrub cocktails or use it for a mocktail, because we definitely want to know what you think about that, or if you have favorite kind of shrub cocktail recipes or any favorite fruit combinations for making your own shrubs. Let us know, because this is something that we're definitely interested in learning some more about. And check out the Lobby Bar episode from this past week to get a little bit more information on the shrub that we did, and the recipe and kind of the history of shrubs and stuff like that. So do that. Let us know. Send pictures, all that good stuff. You can do that on our Instagram and Twitter. It's at Drink the Movies, and on Facebook.com/Drink the Movies. If you want to see pictures of ours, episode recaps, more information about the podcast, you can do that on our website, which is www.drinkthemovies.com. And if you really are jiving with the podcast and you want to support us a little bit further, you can do that on our Patreon. It's patreon.com/drink the movies. We've got a lot of bonus content over there, hangouts, a bunch of fun stuff going on. We did John Wick 4 was our Patreon bonus for the month of April. So go check that out if you feel so inclined. We definitely appreciate it. Michaela, if they want to get subscribed to the podcast, leave us a review, because that helps get the wheels turning here on Drink the Movies. Where can they do that?
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere where Spotify podcasts are distributed. We do 2 drops a week. We would love it if you're liking what you're hearing. Please subscribe. If you're really liking what you're hearing, tell a friend. We really are just knocked out by the community that we've built. Please, our Discord site is blown up. I'm so excited. There's so many people that are talking about cocktails and movies, and it's awesome. Come join us because it's a lot of fun, and it really helps us get the Drink the Movies out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that is Little Women. Next week, Michaela, we are headed back. It's going to be May the 4th. May the Force be with you out there. Return of the Jedi. We'll be back with our third annual Star Wars episode. So Return of the Jedi. We're going out to the movie theater to see that. So that should be pretty exciting. And we have a lot of fun cocktails coming. So you're going to want to make sure to follow the lobby bar and the regular episode next week because we're going to be doing a bunch of Star Wars content coming next week. So stick around, stay tuned for all that. And thank you so much for joining us as we talked about Little Women. This came as a suggestion, recommendation, or request from Patreon. So that's a really great way. If you wanna hear something, let us know, and we'll do our best to do it. We're very giving, just like the March Sisters. So, absolutely. So with that in mind, Michaela, let's go. I've still got like a ton of the Shrub left, so we're gonna mix up a bunch of these mocktails, cocktails. So we're gonna try all sorts of things and see what sticks, and then we'll be back to talk to everyone next time on
Drink the
the
movies.
movies. I wish all the girls would quit the school and he would die. Lori, no. Don't go with Amy.
Don't go with Amy. No. You know what he says? You know what he does say? Hold on. He says something like, I can't believe I'm getting a carriage ready for Joe to go chase a man, but stranger things have happened. He's like, whatever, let's do it.
I'm sorry, who is this guy?
Sorry, who are you again?